Hello everyone, my name is Anne-Paige and welcome to my presentation on productive and counterproductive behaviors in the workplace. Chapter 1. How have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? Give an example of an event and the resulting outcome. So the event I chose was the September 11th terrorist attacks. After this major tragedy, there were wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. These wars led the United States into an economic recession, and then this created a high level of unemployment for us. This increase in unemployment created greater research for job insecurity because we wanted to know what was going on. Another domain that was affected was the recruitment process. Companies started conducting more background checks and screenings. Screenings actually went up to 65% after the attacks. But whereas before the attacks, employers were really only interested in an applicant's criminal history for their country of residence, whereas after the attacks, employers began to shift their focus to international criminal checks. Along with more checks and screening, some employers even required more references and a credit check, just as a couple things. Another outcome produced by the tragedy was an increase in Islamophobia, which is prejudice against Islam or Muslims. This increase saw a need for greater accommodations for employees' religious practices. Overall, the attacks generated greater awareness for emergency preparedness and security parameters. Chapter 3. Describe the socialization process for graduate students in your program. Is the program successful in socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? Now, for my opinion, I think we do go through the stages for socialization, starting with anticipatory socialization, meaning like we talk with the student accounts office, we set up our classes and registration, we go through financial check-in, we order our books, and then we start our first class. Then we go through the encounter stage, which is like the beginning of the class. You're doing your check-in by the first couple days of class, and you're doing your introduction to your classmates so they can learn a bit about you and you can learn a bit about them. Then we go through the change and acquisition stage. This is when we're really getting into the hang of the class and what the requirements are, and we're balancing the responsibility of having class with other things outside of class. The behavioral outcome for this process, to me, it's when we pass the class, we do well, we exceed all expectations, whereas the effective outcome is we're satisfied and motivated to complete the class. But I will say that I don't think that we're really socialized. Like, yes, we do go through the steps, but I don't think we're socialized because the class is online and there's little interaction between classmates. We're successful in the program because we've made it this far, but there's little interaction between us. We make our posts and we introduce ourselves that way, but we don't really stem off of that. That's just where it ends until you start your next class. But I will say I do like this class, and I'm learning a lot, and being able to work while going through this class is making everything really applicable, so I do really appreciate that. Chapter 4. How can an organization reduce or prevent work-family conflict? An organization can implement family-friendly practices and policies as a way to reduce work-family conflict. Some of these practices or policies can include having the option to work from home, otherwise known as telecommunicating, flexible work hours, or what sometimes is called flex time, like maybe getting every other Friday off, or maybe every other Monday off, something like that. Family leave time, so for example, extended maternity leave. Most pregnant women get maybe, I think 6 weeks is average, or 6 to 8 weeks is average, but being able to extend that maternity leave can help reduce conflict. Job sharing, maybe instead of hiring one full-time person, hiring 2 people part-time to do the same job. Or another practice is supervisor support. just having a supportive supervisor, someone that you can go to and you as an employee would feel comfortable confiding in to discuss personal conflicts between work and family. Or another option that a company can implement is on-site daycare or exercise facilities. Both of those are extremely beneficial to the employee. But it's also important for supervisors to undergo training so that they can understand the benefits to these family-friendly practices and policies. And an understanding supervisor can even help employees come up with solutions in order to better reduce this conflict that can be created from work and family. Chapter 5. What techniques could you use to adequately evaluate employee performance as comprehensively as possible? In the article Dimensions of Job Performance, Murphy lays out 8 different measurements of job performance. Now, the first one is paper and pencil tests. This is usually measuring task knowledge. The second one is job skills tests. This measures skill, but not necessarily the ability to complete a task, more about the skill involved in the task. The third one is on-site hands-on testing. This measures the task. And then the fourth one is off-site hands-on testing. The fifth one is high fidelity simulations. This is realistic conditions to test job proficiency. The sixth one is symbolic simulations. This shows aspects of the jobs, and it may not be a complete aspect. The seventh one is task ratings. This is evaluations from others. They see you in real time, and it's more about completing the task and the evaluation of you completing the task. And then the last one is global ratings. These are evaluations of the person from peers, bosses, supervisors, that kind of thing. Now, I would really only I would not use any of the on-site or off-site hands-on testing. I feel like they're not representative of the task or skill involved, and it's not a good measurement. Whereas I would use more of task ratings because, like I was saying earlier, the evaluation is seeing you in real time completing that task, and you're not under pressure for that social desirability aspect. And I would also use paper and pencil tests. That's important to be able to know your task knowledge. And the job skills tests, measuring your skill, not the ability to complete a task. Because in order to be proficient in your job, you want to know how to do this. You need to know the skill behind it, not just how to complete the task. Chapter 6. What are some possible common organizational constraints? How could they lead to counterproductive behaviors? Now, some environmental constraints or organizational constraints can include poor equipment, such as not having the tools and resources to do your job, or unnecessary rules and regulations, also policies that waste employees' time, or policies that make employees feel as if they're wasting their time, poor pay, and unfair treatment by an organization. Now, these constraints can create frustration for the employee toward the organization, and some employees may engage in theft to reduce this frustration. They may do it as a way to get back at the organization for what they feel is unfair treatment. Now, these organizational constraints are major sources of stress at work, so it's really important for companies and organizations to understand these constraints and to limit them so that they lead to more productive behaviors. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope this presentation was really helpful and insightful for everyone.